Windows open and Windows close. So here's the fundamental truth. And with this lot, it's like anything worth doing is hard. If it was easy, somebody else would already have done it, right? Probably lots of times. Yes. So like, it's going to be hard.
And at some point, Randy, I've witnessed it firsthand, and to be very honest, I've been a victim of it myself as well. That is, it becomes yours so much, and then at a point you are very hesitant to come and maybe give a portion of it to the outside world.
Especially once you get it to market, get it validated, people are actually buying it. You kind of want to run this company forever. But the truth is, you're not going to run the company forever. If nothing else, eventually you'll be dead, right? So like,
hi Randy, how are you?
I'm very well. Or good evening. I'm not sure what time it is where you are.
It's a little, yeah, that's correct. It's a little late. It's around 8:30 in Sri Lanka, 8:30 p.m.
Well, thanks for doing this so late in your evening.
No problem. It's my pleasure. How's the weather like, Randy? Is it like cold this time of the year?
Yeah, we've had some snow. It's not snowing right now, but it's supposed to later today. So, you know, it's normal. If you're Canadian, you shouldn't complain about the snow.
The young entrepreneurs, they are after quick cash, right? And the fact that they need to. Randy, let me firstly thank you for accepting my invite, and despite your very busy schedule, for coming on board and spending your valued time to share your valued experience with our entrepreneurs. Let me firstly give you a small introduction about who I am, what I do, and why I started this initiative in the first place. In this case, one second kindly, yeah. So in this, Randy, so I've been in the entrepreneurial space for nearly 13 plus years now. And I've been in the field of medical technologies at the initial stage, made a medical product from ground up, from scratch, and then commercialized the product, did a number of clinical trials, and then we brought to market and then made an exit. And then started another company with one of the other directors on board, who was actually a dean from a university where I closely worked with. And that is actually in the field of education technologies. So been in that space for nearly, I would say, about 9 years in that space now in total. So two diverse areas, one in the field of medical technologies, one in the field of education technologies. But at the end of the day, Randy, you deal with people, you deal with markets, you deal with businesses. So you get a hang of how exactly good it is, and trying to.
Well, that is true, but I think medical technology is particularly difficult. So the fact that you started there is interesting, right? You have to jump through all the regulatory barriers, all the testing barriers. I think it's it's not for the faint of heart. So congratulations on getting through that.
Precisely. I mean, the fact that I was able to start it something difficult was actually was a blessing, because down the line I realized that with that difficultness and that level of pressure that was coming into me at a very young age, that molded into a total different character, Randy. I mean, the way I looked at things and the perspectives, it just gave a total different angle. Randy, the reason why I started this platform called EntrepreneurX is simply because I strongly believe I'm a very passionate entrepreneur who is very, very much willing to give back to the community. And I speak, I mentor young entrepreneurs. I always share my knowledge with youngsters and encourage them to create innovation, not to become entrepreneurs, but also I just love the fact that they are trying to do something new. I always try to encourage them to pursue their dreams, because I mean, to be very honest, a 9 to 5 is comfortable. I encourage the people to work with a 9 to 5, but at the very same time, I encourage them to see something beyond 9 to 5, because that will be the spark of the entire journey. So to take that baton and then to move to the next step, I strongly believe that there are some guidelines that they want, especially in an era where we are sitting now, Randy. I mean, like when we started back in the day, I'm pretty sure you'll be able to tap onto my decision as well. When we came in, there were no ChatGPT, there were no OpenAI, there was no AI to come and assist us. We had to go through the hard way to learn the things, and sometimes there were no mentors to actually give us guidance saying, okay, this is what would happen. So we had to find out the hard way by crashing ourselves and going into zero and hitting rock bottom more than once. uh,
Yes. Yeah.
to
Yeah.
realize it.
The hardest possible way to learn is to bash your head against the wall. So
Yeah.
the fact that you're giving back
So
makes a lot of sense to me.
precisely. So that's exactly the reason why I started EntrepreneurX, and I wanted like-minded people like yourself to come on board, and then to complement this entire thought process, because I believe I'm building up a community. With this, my expectation is that I will be able to build up a entrepreneurial landscape which was very different for the ones that I have witnessed here in the South Asian region, because I've been in this space for very long. I see that there are some gaps in this, and I want to make sure that this is actually the springboard where people, where dreamers could come in and create their products or services or markets with an international view. That's exactly why I wanted like-minded people to come on board, share their vision, what the world looks like, so on and so forth. So
Excellent. Sounds good. And I agree with you. At the end of the day, if there's no entrepreneurs, there's no jobs. So it's kind of important we do our job to make sure other people have them, right?
that's precisely the point that I want to actually get at. So, Randy, would you be kind to share a little bit about yourself? I went through your profile and you're well experienced in your domain, but I would like the audience to hear it from you.
I will start now. Okay, good morning. Randy Woods. So I call myself a recovering entrepreneur. Back in 1995, an old university buddy of mine and I started an internet company back at the dawn of the internet, sort of the dawn of the commercial internet. And we grew that for 23 years and then sold it in 2017. And along the way, we had some adventures. We spun out some technology, raised some money during the dot-com boom, built a software company, and then very quickly wound that back down when the crash happened, ended up turning into a natural gas company. So I had the experience of both building a company by bootstrapping it and also by raising venture capital. In 2017, we sold the firm to a global company called Valtech, and they asked me to stick around and build their M&A function. So I worked with them for 8 years and helped them buy 9 companies, which was really fascinating to identify, purchase, negotiate, and then integrate those firms. And then about the last year, I've been working with the Quorum Group, which is an investment banker, meaning I help technology entrepreneurs sell their companies.
Okay. Did I lose you?
No, I'm here. Did you hear me?
Yeah. I heard about the investment banking part. Yes.
Yeah, great, good. Sorry, just froze for a second. So that's me. That's my background. Today, I'm really passionate about helping entrepreneurs understand kind of the complexities of getting involved, understanding what it takes to grow a company, and then understanding how best to position themselves to exit successfully once they've built the firm.
Good. Exactly. I'm pretty sure your knowledge and expertise would actually reflect and resonate a lot on the discussion today, and it's very timely that we have a discussion on this, Randy, because I think our discussion points will definitely narrow us into this topic gradually. To start with, I mean, when an idea sparks in an entrepreneur's mind, it naturally becomes the baby of the entrepreneur, and then eventually down the line it lives and it breathes, and gradually it becomes a part of your DNA. And at some point, Randy, I've witnessed it firsthand, and to be very honest, I've been a victim of it myself as well. That is, it becomes yours so much, and then at a point you are very hesitant to come and maybe give a portion of it to the outside world. And as a result of that mindset, that prevents you from growing and taking off. And I had to learn it the hard way, saying, thinking, okay, it's not you alone. The product that you developed is way bigger than yourself, and you need to embrace the fact that there is more room for the product that you really want if you take it to the next level. I mean, the topic that we wanted to bring on board is like building a product with an exit mindset. That resonated a lot in me when I just made up those discussion points. I mean, it's very important to have an idea. I mean, when you have the idea of building of the same product, you never think of an exit. But it is not naive or not wrong to have that in the thinking. Randy, would you be able to shed some light on it? I think it's a very, very timely topic, and I am pretty sure even the investors, VCs would also like to shed some light on that particular point.
Sure. Yeah, I think there's certainly a tendency to feel like you're so invested in the idea, especially once you get it to market, get it validated, people are actually buying it. You kind of want to run this company forever. But the truth is, you're not going to run the company forever. If nothing else, eventually you'll be dead, right? So, like, at some point, the company has to transfer. And so, like, you have to think about that hard. And then the second thing is that it's very hard to build a global company or let your idea come to its full fruition if you don't have external help. That might be a partial sale of a company, which is raising capital. It might be a sale of 100% or 90%. There's different ways of doing this, but I think at some point you need more resources and a broader reach to really succeed in a global marketplace. Very hard to do that without external help. And the help can be both financial, but also it can be instrumental. So you might need someone who knows how to sell, I don't know, a B2B product in North America, or to deal with the tax implications of having an operation in Brazil. There's a lot of complexity in business as you grow. You're unlikely to understand all of it yourself, and you can, bang your head against the wall and make all the mistakes, or you can get some advice from others. And sometimes that advice comes with capital as well. So yes, I think thinking about it from the very beginning and understanding that this is a journey for you and the product, but at some point the company is going to be owned by somebody else, and preparing for that is, I think, really valuable for both you, and probably makes it more likely you'll realize the actual potential of the products you bring to market.
Totally fine. Just to get back into the question, Randy, like what I raised earlier was, now for a product to be let's say a VC ready or a investor ready product, from your perspective, would you be able to list down certain checks saying, okay, if this product has reached this milestone X, Y, and Z, that would actually spark the product and will bring up the attention of VC, so on and so forth? What would be your thoughts be on that, Randy?
Sure. So venture capitalists have historically looked for, there's some weirdness in the market right now with AI suddenly arriving, but historically, venture capitalists, investors have looked at a number of things. They've looked at how big is the potential market? So how big could this be, right? If it's perfectly run, how big could it be? What's the global market? So you want to have something which has a large market, not a small market. They'll look at the maturity of the team. So what does the team look like? Because they're really betting on the team that are bringing this to market, not just the product, right? So they'll take a look at, like, what does your team look like? What kind of advisors do you have? Then they will look at the product. How difficult would it be for somebody else to build this product? Or how unique is it to you? What is it that makes it special compared to the rest of the world? And there I'd suggest you want to check two boxes if you possibly can. So one is to squeeze out the technical risk, right? Can this actually work? So is it something that you can bring to market successfully? And that sounds, if it's software, probably you can, but maybe not. Maybe there's integration challenges. But if you're in something else like power technology, sometimes there's real physics questions you have to answer, right? So does the technology work? Get rid of the technology risk. The other side is the commercial risk. Will anybody buy it? Because even though you've got a brilliant idea and you're pretty sure it will change the world, that doesn't mean other people will be lining up to buy it. So if we're able to actually get it to market, have paying customers, that puts you in a much better position when you negotiate with the venture capital firms. It also makes them much more interested actually in putting an investment into your organization. So those two things, squeezing out the technical risk, squeezing out the commercial risk, and then having a great team with a big market, that's the broad spectrum of what investors tend to look for.
Got it, Randy. Randy, just to funnel down into that thought process. Now, hypothetically, if you have to assume that, let's say, now I've been based in the South Asian as well as the Asian markets for a very long time. I worked with Sri Lanka, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Philippines, Indonesia, so on and so forth. Even a little bit of Singaporean entrepreneurs and startups were also in my forte. So I worked with the South Asian market and the Asian market per se, to be very exact. And if a product needs to open up into the world from that perspective, Randy, now let's say with cross-border pollination, to get the attention of a VC who's based in, let's say, in US or in the European state, having the product tested in a total different market, which is not the cup of tea of the investors who are coming in from, let's say, US and Europe, would the previous conditions still be valid, or do we need to tick some more check boxes, Randy?
Yeah, this is a challenge. So I'm Canadian, out of Toronto, Canada. And yes, life is easier if you're born in California doing your startup in Silicon Valley. There's just an ecosystem there that doesn't exist anywhere else. I'd love to tell you it does. It doesn't. Right? There's something very special about that place right now in terms of the ability to raise capital, the willingness of the venture capitalists to take risks, and then sort of the interpersonal networks that exist there. But it is a global market for capital. and there is a lot of capital out there. So I don't think that not being there makes it impossible. It's just one more barrier to climb. I would agree with you though that if you're trying to raise money from a European venture firm or a North American one, you probably want to have some customers in market and prove that you're able to sell in that market. At the end of the day, what an investor wants to see is like the buying how confident am I that you're going to be able to grow this tenfold or 100-fold, and that will probably mean operating in multiple countries, and it probably means operating in Europe and the US, Canada, right? So if you're able to demonstrate your ability to do that, it definitely separates you from your competition and makes you more attractive.
Got it. I mean, that's a very clear a point, Randy, to resonate on how ready the entrepreneurs need to be if they are actually keeping an eye on expanding themselves into the US and the Canadian and the European markets. That's an eye-opening point, Randy.
And just a note there, one thought is you might think about partnerships, right? Because it's hard to operate all over the globe when you're a small firm. But if you can find a partner who's already in market and they can resell your product or give referrals for your services, that can go a long way to allowing you to expand without, it's very expensive and very risky to hire a salesperson in the US or Europe. They're costly. It's unclear if they'll succeed. Whereas if you're able to actually find a way to partner, it does two things. One, I think it increases your chance of success because they already know the marketplace. But then it also shows an investor that you can work with partners. And that's a very easy way to scale a company. Add more partners, you get more sales as opposed to building your own sales team. So I think it's a very valuable strategy when you're not sort of Silicon Valley centric to partner with firms that are already in market.
Would you be kind to elaborate a little bit on that partners collaboration? That is like, let's say hypothetically, if you have a, let's say, education technology product which you have proven with let's say about 50,000 to 100,000 users in the Asian market, and then partnering up with what type of a collaboration would you like recommend to explore, Randy?
Yeah, it's going to vary a lot by the type of firm you have and by its focus. If you're a business to consumer company, a B2C firm, partnerships look a bit different, right? So that might be somebody who's able to drive you traffic in exchange for like an affiliate program, right? Somebody can actually drive customers and they get a percentage of the revenue share going forward. So you see a lot of that in the B2C space. In the B2B space, which is more where I have traditionally lived, you might partner with another technology company. So if what you're doing is solving an integration challenge, then there's presumably another company that has that challenge. And if they already have enterprise customers, they might propose you as the solution, right? Bring you into the market and have their team actually co-sell your product because you're solving a bigger problem for them. That's not an uncommon way of working. And there's also the systems integrators, so firms that actually go to market and implement your product. So again, if it's B2B and it requires implementation services, then they're in the business of reselling product. And so finding some of them that can actually help you get into space, that might be a model too. I think conceptually the idea is that somebody else can be aligned with you. They benefit financially, you benefit financially, and it's a cheaper way to enter the marketplace.
That's an eye-opening point. I mean, especially I've seen that barrier. That is, Randy, I've seen it firsthand. That is having a solid product, but still being unable to come and penetrate into the to the US and the European markets. I've seen it firsthand, and I've encouraged a lot of people to explore the exact thing that you just mentioned. That is to work with SI, the service integrators, as well as other partners in other countries to come on board. Randy, from investors' perspective or from VC's perspective, like if you look at the entrepreneurial landscape, now I've been in the Asian market for quite some time, and I've seen about what is known as entrepreneurial landscape as well as entrepreneur ready markets. So if you look at the Asian market as well as the South Asian markets, how ready are the ecosystems for entrepreneurs to build cutting edge technology in compared to the entrepreneurs who are right now based, let's say, in US or Canada or in Europe? It's like a day and night difference. So as a result of this situation, Randy, the growth of entrepreneurs coming from the Asian region or from the South Asian region to make cutting edge technology to come and penetrate into the US European market is naturally barriered. As a result, I've seen it firsthand. The lack of risk capital, that is the inability to attract funding, has been a nightmare.
It's honestly, I certainly appreciate this. There's almost when we talk about entrepreneur-ready countries, certain countries make it easier than others to start a company. Like sometimes it's very complicated to set up a company in certain countries, and that's something the governments can solve. And I would encourage them to do so, because I think making it easy takes away one barrier. Raising capital is a much more difficult question, and you're right. So there's two pieces to this. There's the question of how much capital is available in a country and who has it, right? And there's also the question of how much risk are they willing to take with it? Because yes, if you're investing in an early stage startup, you have to realize you probably have a 10% chance of seeing that money again, right? Now, you've got a 10% chance of being worth a whole lot more than it is right now. So people who are willing to take that kind of risk, that is both a cultural and sort of like tax and policy structure question. And so, yeah, you see the countries like Canada are not nearly as ambitious. We have much less risk capital in Canada than you have in the US, for example. And there are efforts by the government to change the tax policy to change that. But I guess all that to say, I'm agreeing with you. It doesn't mean there's no risk capital. It makes it much more difficult, though, to find it. And, one model there is to bootstrap, right? How far can you get without taking anybody else's money? And if you can get to the point that you're bringing in more money than it's going out the door, right? If you're cash flow positive, you're in the driver's seat. So you can raise money if you need to, but you don't have to. And that's a very comfortable place to negotiate from. And so, well, it's not very comfortable to do it. If you're able to find a mechanism to bootstrap, to keep complete ownership of the firm and drive it forward, especially in the absence of risk capital, that's one model that's proven successful.
Yeah, that's very valid, Randy. From that perspective, Randy, just to pick your brains and to get your advice on this particular domain, that is specifically now, till you find cash flow positive generation in the company. That is, you have a startup and you are trying to generate some cash flows. What would you actually recommend? I mean, my line of thinking is this, Randy. That is, you have a product you initiated, but your target is to bring the product all the way to the US as well as the European and the Canadian market. That's the thinking, right? So if you are to initiate with initiate a product of that sort, and let's say you are not a US based entrepreneur, how would you advise him to maybe think this through? Would you be able to shed some light on that kindly?
Yeah, again, a lot depends on the kind of product you're building, right? Certain things you can't bootstrap. A classic example would be telco infrastructure, right?
Yes.
You may have designed the world's best new switch that's going to change the whole infrastructure for telcos, but it's kind of like, and now we need $1 billion to bring it to market, right? You can't do that in your basement. It's not going to happen. If you've got a SaaS software startup, though, yeah, you probably can get it to market, get a few customers, and a lot of firms will do like a software product, but on the side they'll do services, so they've got some funds coming in while they do it, and so they find some way of making it work. So it really depends. You're in the medical device world. I think it's very hard to bring a product in the medical world to market without having external funding, because there's no early way of bringing revenue in. As a broad statement, services firms find it easier to be cash flow positive earlier, because you're basically getting paid for your work as you go, whereas product firms find it more difficult because you have to make an investment up front before you see any returns coming back. On the flip side, products tend to scale really quickly. Services firms scale much more slowly. So there's a trade-off in all cases. But that gives you some sense. Like, the key is to find options or mechanisms that allow you to get early cash flow as quickly as possible, because as a founder, that gives you options. It also gives you negotiating leverage when you are speaking to investors.
Precisely. Randy, I've actually come across this strategy, and I personally found it to be very useful, as well as it has worked on myself, as well as worked on a couple of companies where I have actually mentored and consulted as well. That is implementing what is known as a POC, which is a proof of concept. Let's say you can have a fantastic product, let's say running fantastic in the South Asian or the Asian region, but at the very same time you need to go and explore the let's say the US and European market, but you don't have the capital to execute it. So you run a POC, and then with that POC, the idea is actually to make sure that we penetrate the market in the first place, but at the very same time to explore the market traction in those areas as well. Now if you let's say if you are the investor that is who is interested in putting some money down the line for a product of that sort, would you be actually very interested to see, even though you have not made sales in that particular region, let's say the US region, but you have run a successful POC where the market is ready to embrace something like that? Would it pique your interest, Randy?
Yeah, I think anything that gives the investor confidence that this is real and is capable of fulfilling its promise will go a long way. Proof of concept, unpaid proof of concept is great. A paid proof of concept is better. because then you're showing the clients actually care enough to open their wallet. Even it's at a loss, if there's any contribution from the client to the proof of concept, it makes it more real in the eyes of investors. If you have multiple proof of concepts in different kinds of industries, for example, or at different sizes of companies, again, that just multiplies the impact. So yes, certainly proof of concepts are a very useful way of moving forward. Again, they have more credibility if you're being paid for it than if you're doing something complementary. Just because it shows that it's really the client or the buyer is really kind of like engaged in it for real, as opposed to simply doing you a favor or something, right? But yes, it's not a bad mechanism. Again, you've got a sales process for a proof of concept, though, too, right? You still have to find somebody who's got the problem, convince them you can solve it, and then get them to sign the document to move forward. So yes, the dollar price goes away, but there's still a fairly substantial sales investment there.
Agreed. I mean, that's spot on when you justify it from that particular perspective. Randy, to get another line of thinking on this particular area, that is like, let's say we are a brand new product, let's say based in the Asian market, and we have a good product and a proven product, but still if the product is supposed to be penetrating into the European or the US markets, now I've seen platforms like, let's say, Y Combinator, as well as other in-house techniques in Silicon Valley, which can nest the innovation, and that actually takes a lot of I mean, the brand alone, let's say if your product is backed by Y Combinator, or so if you are even staged at Y Combinator, that adds a lot of leverage into the product that you're trying to bring on board. Would you encourage entrepreneurs to explore that part, like even though you don't have a POC running on another country, to explore that part, that is to come and maybe hatch yourself into an incubator in the US or in the European state? Would that actually be a game changer, Andy, from your perspective?
It can be really, really useful if you're accepted. I mean, something like Y Combinator gets tens of thousands of applications for every one they look at, right? So yes, sure, absolutely. If you're able to convince them that you've got the right idea, go down that path. Other incubators can be very valuable too, but I think what I would do is be careful. How to put it this way: not all incubators are created equal, and not all have the same kind of brand power that Y Combinator does. So do your research, understand how many companies have gone from that incubator to being successful companies. Maybe talk to some of the people who've been through it before you sign on, because again, they deliver very different value for the founder at very different rates. Not everybody is Y Combinator, right? And there's a lot of incubators out there. So just be careful, right? It's a partnership that could make or break your company. So spend some time, if you're going down that route, really, really doing your due diligence, talking to people who've been through it, make sure it's a good fit for you.
Got it. So I think that like you correctly say, it's a hustle, Randy, because when you are an entrepreneur yourself, you need to have that hustle mindset to go and execute it, because not everything you plan gets executed as is, especially in the entrepreneurial journey, let's say.
Yeah, you're lucky if your plans survive the first few weeks. I mean, you have to have a plan. They're really important. But I can't remember whose line it is, but they rarely survive an encounter with reality, right?
Precisely, yeah.
The world's more complicated than you think it is, and you're going to have luck, both good and bad. Take credit for the good luck, because you're going to get blamed for the bad luck. But recognize that your job is not to execute your plan perfectly. Your job is to have an end goal in mind where you want to get to, and then have sort of the energy and the intellectual flexibility to just deal with the world as it is on your way there. That's kind of what a successful entrepreneurial journey looks like.
Precisely. Randy, now diving into the entrepreneurial ecosystem, which is currently in the current generation where you and I are speaking right now, which is the Gen Zs who are coming into the market, which is totally different from the entrepreneurial mindset which was there, existed by about 10-15 years back, where we came into the picture, and about very comfortable at 20-30 years back from your perspective. So I mean, the mindset of entrepreneurs has gradually, to be very honest, shifted to a very different perspective, and right now I've often seen times, because the young entrepreneurs, they are after quick cash, and the fact that they need to build up tolerance to build the product is actually something that I see is very scarce in this young generation. And the fact that they don't have what is known as accountability. I've spoken this in my previous episodes also, Randy. That is like, when you have a product, and when you go and pitch the product into an investor, and if the investor is actually interested in bringing in money into the table, you become liable for the money that's available on the table, because the investor had some faith, they believed in you, and more than they believed, like sometimes the investor believes in the person more than the product. and
Yes, yes.
when they put the money on the table, it's our responsibility to make sure that we have that returns bought into the investor. I mean, we have strategic investors who say, okay, I mean, it's a gut feeling, Randy. They realize that the entrepreneur is working so hard, and eventually down the line they are going to hit a wall. But the investor is very happy that they put in the money because they believe in the person.
This
Yeah.
is true. And of course, if you have success once, those same investors will come back if you want to do it again. So yes, to your point about fast cash. Listen, there are times when the economy does weird things. It happened in the dot-com boom. It's happening in AI right now, where there is opportunities where you can do something really quickly, flip it, and make some money. It's not a long-term thing. It may feel like it if you're a young entrepreneur. It's not. It's going to end. Windows open and windows close. So here's the fundamental truth. And I have stepkids that are in the same generation you're speaking of, and we talk about this a lot. It's like anything worth doing is hard. If it was easy, somebody else would already have done it, right?
Precisely.
Probably lots of
Yes.
times. So it's going to be hard, right? If it's worth doing, it's going to be hard. So you have to get your brain around that. And so that grit, perseverance, that's at the heart of being an entrepreneur. That's not like an additional thing. That is what it means to be an entrepreneur, right? That willingness to just keep going when there's no possible path forward. There's an old boxing analogy. I don't know who said it, but it's like a champion is somebody who gets off the mat when they can't, right? Which is ridiculous, but also true. Like there's somehow you find a way to keep going. So I do think that some people become entrepreneurs with a misunderstanding of what the journey is going to be like. It's going to be hard. There are going to be really difficult moments. If there's not, you're probably on the wrong path, right? It's just what you're trying to do is change the world, and the world will push back. The world doesn't like to be changed. So your job is to make that happen. And it requires a persistence, which is unusual. And I think actually people who don't have that or can't develop it are poorly suited to the entrepreneurial role. And so I think that's worth understanding quickly. So I try to set that context when I talk to young entrepreneurs. Like, even if everything's going perfectly today, I guarantee it will not go perfectly forever. Like, that's not what happens. Planes fly into buildings. We have global plagues. Like, things happen that change the playing field, and you're going to have to find a way to push through that. Like, that is the job. It's not what you do when things are easy. It's what you do when things are hard that determines whether you're a real entrepreneur or not.
Precisely. I mean, navigating through the inevitable and being comfortable with uh, being very comfortable listening to plenty of no's actually changes the entire perspective over. And I've seen it firsthand, and I've encouraged the entrepreneurs who are young and upcoming entrepreneurs, and even seasoned entrepreneurs, to be very comfortable. That is the downfall of one instance is not going to define who you are. Even the downfall of, let's say, 10 instances will also not define who you are. But having the grit to hang in there till you actually see the light at the end of the day, I think that is actually what makes you special. Like you correctly said, if it would have been easy, somebody else would have died in the first place. So
the reality, right? Yeah, for sure.
Exactly.
And listen, it's not an easy lifestyle, right? Probably you'll fail. Most entrepreneurs do. You go in knowing that, but you have to have the confidence yourself. You'll be the one that finds the way through. And so, you have to sort of accept that. It's one of those things that, yes, there's a paradox there. The odds are against you, but if you're not excited by that, then maybe it's not the right career. Right? And to your point about hearing no, you will hear no a lot. You'll hear no a lot more than you hear yes. So again, something you have to learn to be comfortable with.
Precisely. I think I spoke about this even in a previous episode, Randy. That is, right now in the current generation, the word entrepreneurship as well as the entrepreneurial platforms are so sugar coated, and they are mapped into some luxury yachts, some Lamborghinis, and some Ferraris, some Instagram reels, so on and so forth. So as a result, a lot of students, youngsters, they fall victim for it, and they become prey for it. And let's say 3 months down the line, they realize, okay, this is something totally not for me.
Yeah, I think it's a really difficult thing. I think there's always been a tendency for people to go into entrepreneurship who are not naturally suited to it, because there is the there's the potential of financial rewards. But that's probably not. Most entrepreneurs aren't motivated by the financial rewards. They want to build something. They want the freedom of owning their own life. They've got the drive to do something that's different, right? If you're really motivated by financial rewards, do an analysis of this and see whether or not this is the right path forward. You might be able to make more money with more certainty elsewhere, right? Here's a number most people don't realize. So in North America, and I'm sorry, I don't have numbers for your area, 95% of companies, of successful companies, never make more than $1 million in revenue a year. So like 95%, and 1 million in revenue, which means the profits are somewhere between like 50,000 and 70,000, right? You're not buying a yacht on 50 or $70,000,
Yeah.
right? Even in US dollars. So most firms never break the $1 million barrier. And those are firms, that includes everybody, right? That includes the barbershop down the street, it includes the restaurant on the corner. But like the vast majority of entrepreneurs are, living a fairly modest lifestyle. There are very few yachts sold every year. There's a reason for that.
Got it. I mean, uh, that's the reality, Randy. I mean, it has to be showcased more often times, because the facade as well as the sugarcoatingness of this entire industry has actually created a false impression of the younger generation, and I think it's high time that we give it raw, and that's why I wanted to build this platform in the first place as well. Randy, just to navigate this discussion into a slightly different domain now, the fact of being an entrepreneur, or being the art of entrepreneurship, is actually, to be very honest, from my perspective, I believe that's about, I would say 80% of it has to come in from the person alone. That is the individual who is having the passionate alone. The next 20% I believe can actually have room for guidance, because if you are 100% rigid on it, like there's no room for guidance, it's very difficult to navigate an entrepreneur, because they are so self dominant that they are not willing to actually open up and get the necessary instructions, so on and so forth. So if you look at the current education system, Randy, I mean, to be very honest, the South Asian education system as well as the education reforms in Asia has not been entrepreneur centric, and it has not been for a very long time, and I don't honestly see that being challenged or changed for the next 20-30 years. As a result, when they don't have that fundamental knowledge about what an entrepreneur is, or even the knowledge of financial literacy, uh, that actually challenges, and eventually the society is very welcome to build, let's say people who are good at jobs, not who are creating jobs. As a result, from the let's say from the North American or from the US and the European mindset when it comes to the education sector, uh, especially in the fields of entrepreneurship, do you think the necessary reforms are being built, or are there room for improvement, Randy, from your perspective?
Yeah, I think this is something that is it's hard to speak about globally, obviously, right? Because every country is different. So let me speak kind of specifically to Canada for a moment, and I think the northern U.S. states, which I know best. So yes, there is some sort of nod towards entrepreneurship in the school system. It gets pretty serious at the university or college level in the U.S. We call them universities in Canada, where, for example, the University of Waterloo, which is down the road here, they have entrepreneurship courses in every discipline. I don't care if you're studying mathematics or psychology, right? There's an entrepreneurial flavor. So they're very much trying to inspire that. I almost wonder if it's too late, though, right? I almost wonder if we really need to have these conversations when people are 13, 14, 15 to make it an available option for them to realize that for a certain category of people, being an entrepreneur is a really useful lifestyle. And we're kind of talking about like products and technology entrepreneurs here. But if you think about it broadly, it's the people who start businesses. And at least in North America, a lot of those people are people who don't make it out of high school. They quit in grade 11 because they see a way that they can go and build something and do it. And so they're almost doing it despite the education system instead of because of the education system. And I completely concur with your point. If being an entrepreneur is a crazy job in some ways, but if you don't have entrepreneurs, you don't have businesses, you don't have jobs. There's no way for those jobs. The people who train for jobs don't get jobs if somebody else isn't building them. So it's a really critical piece of the puzzle. I don't know there's one solution to it, but I do think that somehow embedding it either in the education system or culturally, and just making people see it as a potential path for them can be really powerful.
Yeah, so I totally agree with you, Randy, and I've been a very passionate entrepreneur who is very focused on building this fundamentals. I truly agree with you on the fact that I think this has to be positioned or like the seed of this entire concept of entrepreneurship, building businesses. I mean, even forget about businesses. Being an entrepreneur or building that entrepreneur mindset should actually come at a very lower stage in a child. Let's say about grade 5 6 onwards. I think these concepts should come, because like you said, uh, when you reach a particular age, let's say university, high school, so on and so forth, I mean the the brain has already seen a lot of things, and the ability for it to adapt is actually, to on my perspective, I mean, there's room for adaptation, but the fact that if you were able to put it at a very very earlier stage, I think that that would actually help them mold into a better generation. That's what I also personally feel, because I very recently came across a young entrepreneur. He was 14 years old, and Randy, his product was very simple. I just talked to him, and then his product was a simple game very similar to Monopoly. Are you familiar with the Monopoly game, Randy?
Yep. Yes.
Yeah. So very similar to Monopoly, but the difference is that it teaches financial literature to students of, let's say, 13, 11, 12, 13 years old. And I had a discussion with this young student, and then he was from a school who came on board, and I asked him, what is your exact target market? He said, he actually said, he said, sir, I'm looking at teaching financial literacy for students in my age or younger. So I said, like,
Awesome.
who are you trying to sell this to? He said, I'm trying to sell this to younger students. So then I gave him a different idea, and I said, son, I think your initial target market should be banks.
It's great.
Yeah, because the banks would love to introduce financial literacy to students at that particular age. So, and then down the line, they will understand learning, gross compounding of investments, investing in stocks, so on and so forth. And the banks would love to have your brand on board, and they would go door to door and have their sales representatives go and take your product to the other stages.
So that's actually a good example of a partnership, right? Like the bank's doing the selling for you, and everybody benefits. So actually, kind of goes back to an earlier piece. I love that. It's a great story. I love that story very much. I think you're absolutely correct that something you notice when you speak to a lot of entrepreneurs is two things. One, in many cases, one of their parents had been an entrepreneur. So for them, it was always an available option. It's really common. It almost runs in families. The second thing you'll figure out is that entrepreneurs tend to have done something when they were really young to make money that was like not a job. Like maybe they were picking strawberries or other fruit and selling it door to door, right? Or something like that. Like they've had some entrepreneurial thing from the very beginning that they saw as an opportunity. They were fixing bicycles in the neighborhood or something to make a few dollars. And so you see those two things, which again, to me speaks to the fact that if you were able to broaden the number of people who had those experiences, maybe we end up with more entrepreneurs in the environment. And I think that's good for everybody.
Exactly. So, Brandy, now just to have a narrative into this discussion from your perspective, that is as an investor or from a VC's perspective. So far, Randy, to be like if you are at in a position to maybe disclose, not with names and not with names to say, what type of business actually has actually made you see the returns so far, and what type of products do you think that would actually interest the investors as we speak in the current market? Because right now we are going on a AI bandwagon, and some say it's an AI bubble, and there's lot of literature on it. And what is your reading on that, Randy?
Sure. Let me there's 2 or 3 questions there. Let me start with this. So I built 2 types of companies. I built service company, again, because I could bootstrap that. I had no money. So we did a services company. They paid us, and then we paid our employees. And we built that to 150 people. That's the one we built for 23 years. Very successful. A lot of challenges with that model, but one where you get to contain ownership, and we never raised any money. I think that actually is a useful model. And depending on the market you're in, maybe it's the right path, because once you raise money, you effectively have a boss, right? The investors are like in your wheelhouse every day, and they have an opinion on what you're doing. So understanding why you're starting the company, and then really asking, do I need the money, right? Can I do this? Can I achieve my goals with less money or with no money? It's a useful question. So I built that. I built a software company, and we were quite successful until we had the dot-com crash. Things happened, right? Things were going perfectly. Everything was going great, and then it wasn't. And we rebuilt that. We sold the IP assets, and we turned it into a natural gas company. So I learned a lot from that experience. So those are 2 things that I've been involved in. One successful, neither one was a complete failure, but certainly the product did not fulfill its promise. Our timing was bad. that happens sometimes. In terms of companies that I've had success with in the past, where I do my own personal investments, I tend to look at people that I know personally, usually who I've worked with, and where I can add value. So I do some little bit of angel investing, and in those cases, I want to be able to help the company. So there's no point in me just giving them money. They can get money from other people. But if I can make introductions, if I can get them a first sale, if I can find a way to sit in their board and actually help them navigate some of the challenges, like that's where I get involved. And then finally, what's the market looking for right now? This is a very strange time, and this does happen. I don't know if it's a bubble. I'll step away from that terminology for a second, but you see this when new technologies arrive. Happen with railroads, for example. There's an overinvestment in the infrastructure because it's clear something's going to change here that's going to change the world, and somebody's going to get very wealthy doing it. Not everybody that gets invested in is going to change the world, right? There's going to be winners and losers. And this is what happened in the dot-com boom, right? It was the biggest run-up of investment capital in the history of the world. And then 90% of the firms didn't make it. But the 10% that did include Amazon and Meta and the firms that literally have changed the world, right? So there are going to be winners, there are going to be losers. Right now, the challenge for a founder is, I think last year, 74% of venture capital went to AI-related investments. So if you're anything except AI related, it's very hard to raise capital right now. I expect that will re-index and things will balance at some point. And by the way, none of this suggests that AI isn't real. I think it's super real. I think it's going to change everything. It's just that not everyone who hangs AI on their company as a name is going to be successful. So I think there'll be overinvestment. So right now, tough to raise money if you haven't got AI as part of your story. I think a useful business practice, even stepping away from investment, is no matter what your idea is, put AI at the center of it. I don't care if you're starting like a real estate company, like it should be AI centric because this is going to be the new infrastructure on which the world runs. If you want to raise money, right now you need to have an AI story. I don't know if that'll be true in 6 months.
Agreed. I mean the fact that our thinking and our products should align with the AI thinking is very much true. We've seen it firsthand, and I think AI has actually changed this entire ecosystem over the past couple of I would say very comfortably over the past 5 years, Randy. The entire landscape has seen some miracles. I mean, things that you imagine to do in 10-15 very comfortably with 10-15 people, and you'd utilize about 2-3 months, are now done in a matter of weeks, and sometimes in the matter of days if you are capable of correctly communicating the prompt to the
absolutely
to the so
yes. I think it lowers the barrier to entrepreneurship for a lot of groups. So even if what you're developing has nothing to do with AI, if you can develop faster and test faster, that goes a long way. I'm working with one firm where they've been growing. I think they started the year with $0 in revenue, and they just broke $6 million ARR, annual recurring revenue, last month. And part of their secret sauce is they just yes, they could code faster using AI, but really the key was that they could test every idea they had. They put it out there and see what worked. And because it was a business to consumer product, they could see very quickly what worked and what didn't. You do more of what works and less of what doesn't. So that's one example, I think, of how AI is going to change the infrastructure as opposed to being like the thing you're developing. It's like it just changes how the economy works. And yeah, there's going to be those that can take advantage of that in the short term are going to have advantages. The long term, we'll all be doing it. And so that advantage kind of neutrals out.
Agreed. Totally. I'm totally with you on that particular point, Randy. I think we've used a very valuable. We had a very valuable discussion over the time. I think we've been able to touch a lot into the entrepreneur landscape, as well as how the world's receptiveness towards entrepreneurship, as well as a new market, so on and so forth. Randy, I think to sum up this session and to get the most out of it, as the final question, my question to you is this. Right now, I think for the entrepreneurs who are upcoming, and well as a startup companies, or even for a single or individual entrepreneur who's planning to build something of their own, what would your advice be to them? And would you be able to say, okay, if you are on this area, would you be you should focus on this, so on and so forth? What would your advice be to them?
I think I'll pass on the advice that made the biggest difference to me to start off with, because I think it was really helpful advice. It's like the short way was expressed as the middle doesn't matter. Let me explain what that means. You need to know what you want to do. You need to have a vision of where you want to be in 3 years, 5 years, whatever your time frame is, what that looks like. It has to be really concrete, like really understand what that looks like. We want to have people in 6 countries. We want to be selling to these kind of companies. I want to wake up in the morning and do these kinds of tasks. Have that in your head. And then you have to figure out, what's the thing I have to do today that moves me closer to that mark? Like what 3 tasks can I do this morning that makes that future come closer? Don't worry a whole bunch about what's in between, because that plan's not likely to work out exactly how you plan anyways. But having those two things very crisply defined, where I want to get to eventually, what I need to do today that's going to move me in that direction, those are the two things I think super powerful for me in helping me prioritize my time and changing my thinking about things like annual planning. So that's a piece of advice I think is generic across all entrepreneurship. In terms of like today, what I'd suggest you do if you're a founder in any discipline, as I mentioned earlier, make sure you've got AI in your story, and not necessarily as the story, but use it as part of the infrastructure to make your next steps. Build it into the heart of what you do, because it is going to be the infrastructure on which the world runs tomorrow. You don't want to build on last year's infrastructure. And then maybe the third thing is just really understand your own motivations. Like, why do you want to be an entrepreneur? Because that really changes what you do, or it should change what you do. If what you want to do is build a company so you can make enough money to buy a yacht or to take care of your family, then you need to start thinking from day one, how am I going to generate this? How am I going to sell it? What's the path to making the most money with the least time? If what you really want is to find your own path in life, to build your own world, to be an independent person who's self-made, then you have to look at different kind of questions. Maybe you don't raise capital. Maybe you do bootstrap. Maybe you make different decisions. So it's hard to know yourself, but I think self-understanding is absolutely critical for an entrepreneur to successfully exit or successfully have the career that they should have and that makes them feel fulfilled.
um, I think those are highly timely points that you actually questioned, Randy. I think those things would actually naturally carve entrepreneur in the becoming to be and reach out to the expectations that they really want. I think that's fascinating to get it perspective, because I think I had this quote somewhere. I can't exactly recall where I actually came across that. That is, it's important to tap into the knowledge to the knowledge space of a person who has already done it, than going and accessing knowledge from people who haven't done it. That that just exactly enlightened a lot to me, because we need to be entrepreneurs. Like I to be very exact, that is, I am very very hungry to see actually how successful entrepreneurs have been there. I mean, they might not have the time for me. They might not see me as very insignificant to come and even have a chat with. But I try to be, excuse my English, I'm like the pain in the neck as much as possible. That is because I'm hungry to see what is it that they did different to reach to the place where they are. And why can't I exactly reach there? I'm very curious day in day out to. Yeah.
I absolutely agree. So two things on that. First, I think you'll find that most successful entrepreneurs are more than happy to give you share their experience, because undoubtedly they went through some hard times, and if they can help you avoid that, generally speaking, founders feel really comfortable and very excited to share that. The second thing is, it's very easy to share opinions, right? Everyone has an opinion,
Yes.
whether or not it's effective. What you want to dig down to is experiences. What did you do? What was your experience with this? What did you actually do in your world? Because that's real, right? Opinions, I can give you an opinion on your company. It may be worth something or nothing, or it can actually be detrimental. But if I tell you that in my company, when I faced this challenge, we did these three things and this one thing worked, that's far more powerful, far more credible, and far more useful to you. So I would suggest that, yes, talk to founders. They're almost certainly willing to talk to you, and then ask them to tell their story as opposed to give opinions on your story. I think you'll get a lot more value out of it.
Precisely. Very much with you on that. Right. Randy, I think we have been able to have a very fantastic discussion, and I'm pretty sure our audience and the community would actually embrace a lot from this discussion. I intend to have a similar discussion in the future with you on board, with a broader community. My idea, to be very honest, Randy, is actually to build this community and then to build a platform where entrepreneurs will be able to come and pitch their ideas, and then to build up a springboard where they could take their products into the next level where they are currently hindered into. I've seen it firsthand. I've witnessed it firsthand. I've been a victim of it once, and I think it's high time that people like us, and even like-minded people like yourself and myself, get on board to change this entire dimension. And I would like to thank you for taking the time and accepting my invite. We have never met earlier, just an invite, and then you were kind enough to accept it and then to share it. So, Randy, once again, thank you for your valuable time.
No. And listen, if you want to reach out on LinkedIn, Randy Woods, and then maybe search for like CORUM. I'm in Ontario, Canada, if that helps. Reach out, connect. I publish all the time. I'd be happy to have conversations.
Right. So if the entrepreneurs would like to maybe connect with you, I will tag you on this video. and then
Awesome.
they would be able to reach out. So once again, Randy, thank you very much for your valued time. We hopefully will meet up again in the future.
It's great. Thanks.
Right.
Cheers.
Thank you, Randy. Bye bye.